welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I've got a requested magic review for you guys. I'm taking a look at Ali Foroutan's mindCAAN. Now this is a predicted card at any number effect. I was asked a couple of months ago to review this, and it's about 2 years old now. You can still pick it up for $40 from Penguin Magic. You'll get a 30-minute instructional video where you're going to learn the main effect, as well as a couple of variations. One variation, which is like an open prediction effect, and then another variation where you apply the principle with blank cards that have songs written on them. That's pretty much what you're going to learn here. Now, before I get into the review, it's important that we just talk about the main premise of the effect, because it seems like a lot of people don't understand what an CAAN is. Magicians like to call any effect where they're counting down to a card an CAAN, and so it's important that you understand that for an effect to be an CAAN or an any card at any number, one person has to freely think of a card and another person has to freely think of a number, or if you're using just one spectator, they're going to think of both pieces of information freely, and then you allow them to, count down from a deck that you have there on the table down to their number and find their card. That is what an CAAN is. What people call CAANs are really selected cards at any number, or just a CAAN. That is the most common type of effect that you see today that people call CAANs, where a spectator selects a card and then they name a number freely and they can count down to that number and find that card. Now this effect actually fits under a third category, which is a predicted card at any number effect. Now I'm going to just walk you guys through this to give you a good idea of what you can expect to get for your $40. I'm going to give you guys my impressions of this, my rating, and of course I'm going to give you guys my recommendations. I'm going to recommend a couple of other predicted card at any number effects, and I'm also going to touch on Iceberg by Daniel Johnson, because so many people have messaged me about that effect. And contrary to what you may have heard, it is not an CAAN. It is actually a predicted card at any number. That's exactly what Iceberg is. So let's first take a look at this effect that I was asked to review, this mindCAAN effect. The effect is very simple to understand. You have a deck of cards. You ask a spectator to freely think of any number from 1 to 52. They think of a number and name it. You'll let them take the cards out of the box. They count down to their number. They've arrived at a card, and you can show them that you've predicted ahead of time the card that they would arrive at. That's what the effect is. It's pretty simple and straightforward. The ad copy says the following. It says, "You never touch the cards, completely hands off." And that is for the most part true. There is a variation here, an open prediction variation, where you do have to touch the cards, but the main handling of the effect, you don't. They advertise no forces, no gimmicks, no duplicates, regular deck. So all of that is true indeed. In fact, the principle that is being used here is not new, but the way that Ali Foroutan has applied it here is unique. It's different. But the actual underlying principle, I've seen it in other types of magic effects, just not in this type of effect overall. Now, what are my thoughts about the effect? So my thoughts are the following, is that I thought that this was vastly overpriced for what you're going to learn, because it's actually extremely simple. And unfortunately, I didn't think it was well thought out. And the main reasons are because you cannot show your prediction up front when you start. You don't take the prediction out until after they've named their number. And for me, that's a really big problem, because any effect where you use a prediction, you need to have the prediction out in full view before you start. Otherwise, the whole effect is weak, because the person's going to think that maybe you've got 10 predictions on your body. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, that's like really a problem. And you can actually fix it if you add something to this effect. Then you can actually fix it where you can have the prediction on full view from the beginning. But the way you're going to learn it, for the $40 you pay, you're not going to be able to have the prediction out in full view. The other issue is that you cannot hand out the prediction after you show it to them. They can't take it with them, because they'll find something else that's up with it, which is not so good. So, the prediction can only be shown to the spectator. So this is a kind of effect that maybe might be good for video chat, but in real life, it's really not a great effect in that way. I also didn't like the idea that even though they have a wide range of numbers to choose from, there are some numbers that if they choose, you have to have the spectator cut the deck. And that's a big problem because in this effect, the only piece of information that the spectator is freely thinking of is the number. And so the idea that you have a deck of cards on the table, they freely think of a number. They have to take the cards out of the box, and now they have to cut the cards before they count down to their number. That seems fishy because it seems like you're changing the order of the cards because they gave you a number based on the number they gave you. It would be different if you let them take the cards out, let them cut them, and then name their number and then deal down to their number. That would be a little bit different. But the issue I have is that after they name their number, then you have them take the cards out of the box and cut the deck and then deal down to it. So that really made it sour for me. I really didn't like that at all. And it's not for all numbers, it's actually for a small range of numbers. But that being said, that did kind of ruin the effect for me. And so I really didn't like that at all. There is also a very small discrepancy that sometimes you'll have to use based on the number they give you. I don't think it's a big deal. And for me, the two major issues was really that the prediction can't be in full view from the beginning, and that they have to sometimes cut the deck before you start. He does go over a version which is an open prediction type version of effect, but in that version you do have to handle the cards yourself, and I really didn't like that at all. There's so many other better open prediction type effects out there. So that was my impressions from this. In terms of any questions that you guys may have about this effect, difficulty wise, I would tell you that it's absolute beginner. There's no sleight of hand because you don't have to touch anything really. The only thing you're going to have to touch is you're going to have to just get your prediction out. In terms of memory, you're only going to have to remember a couple of simple things. So as I said before, this is like semi-self-working. It's not an impromptu effect because there is a setup with the deck, although you are just using a regular deck. There's no duplicates, there's no gimmicks, and there's no gaffes. In terms of language dependent that people usually ask me about, it is completely language dependent because you're not using any words at all. And I think that those are the major questions that you guys probably have about this. I don't think that there's any angle restrictions. As you can see here, here's my rating for this. You can see that when I compare this with other effects, I really just gave it the lowest rating, like 1 out of 5, because the other effects I'm going to mention to you guys are far superior to this. In terms of the price, I rated it also 1 out of 5 because I think this should have been priced at maybe 10 bucks. $40 for this effect is just ridiculous. I don't think that this is worth more than $10. And as you could see there, for the extra content, I thought the extra content was terrible. Not anything that you're going to use at all either. So that gives us a final rating of 2.33 out of 5. And I would highly recommend that you don't pick this up. You just stay away from it. It's really not an effect I think you're going to like at all. And there are much better alternative predicted card at any number effects. Let's take a look at a couple of other alternative predicted card at any number effects. And we're going to first start out with Iceberg by Daniel Johnson and Michael Murray, because a lot of you have messaged me and several people have actually asked me to review it. You may realize that it is an offshoot from Daniel Johnson's Fast project, and Iceberg is a predicted card at any number effect because you present a folded card, you have the spectator think of a card, and then they're told to think of a number, and then you can show them that the card on the table actually has 52 cards written on it with 52 numbers, and the card that's at the number on the card matches what they're thinking of. That's what the effect is. Unfortunately, it is not a logically flowing effect, and I had some issues with it, which is why I don't recommend it to people, even though a lot of people really like it a lot. The main issues with the effect is as follows: is it doesn't make sense because you first have the person name a suit. You tell them, think of a suit, name it out loud, but then the rest of the card, they don't name out loud, they keep to themselves. Then, instead of letting them freely think of a number, You tell them to think of whatever the value is of their card, double it, and then double it again. Now, the issue with that is it's very restrictive, the number that they're thinking of, because realistically, the number that they're thinking of isn't a number that they've really thought of. So that's a problem, because your prediction is the number, is that card is at that number. So it's a problem when it's not freely thought of. The other issue that you may have is that your spectator may not be very good at doing math in their head. And when they have to double numbers in their head, especially if they're thinking of a higher number, they may make a mistake. So that may be a problem for you, which is why this effect, I don't really like it. And just to add to it, the idea that, 75% of the time, you're going to have to do a switch of the prediction at the worst possible moment, that just nixes the effect, because keep in mind that any prediction effect is only as strong as you putting the prediction out in full view, and hopefully you don't have to touch it anymore, because if you have to manipulate it, the person is going to remember, oh, he did something with it. Oh, I don't know what he did, but he did something, And if you have to do that 75% of the time, that's really not a good effect. The structure of iceberg is terrible. It's not a good predicted card at any number effect, despite what a lot of people think. There are better versions, which I'm going to recommend to you guys now. So my first recommendation, which is my strongest recommendation, is David Forrest's effect called Loxley. Now, this is an effect I've been using for almost 8 years now. And David Forrest he just rebooted his full52.com site. So hopefully you can still get this if you're interested in it. And this is a predicted card at any number effect. It's extremely strong. I've only gotten really strong reactions from people. If you're not familiar with it, it's like this. You tell the spectator you're going to text them a prediction. So you send them a text message. You tell them not to look at it yet. You have a deck of cards, and you tell the spectator that, you take the cards out of the deck, you have a joker, and you say you want them to take the joker and just stick it anywhere they want in the deck. And you tell them whatever card is above the joker where you put it, that's the card we're going to use. So they freely put the joker face up anywhere they want in the deck, and then you tell them to give the deck a couple of cuts. So they cut the cards a bunch of times, and then, it's up to them until they want to stop cutting the deck. Now, under these conditions, you explain to them, now keep in mind something, you got to put the joker where you wanted, and you cut the deck as much as you wanted. There's no way I had any control over that. They have to agree. So you can spread the cards and show them where the joker is, and you can let them count down to the joker. So the card that's right above the joker, that's the selection, and they've got a number because they counted down to where that is. When they open their phone, they're going to see that you sent them a photo of the predicted card with a little post-it with the number on it. Now, just to add to it, now you can tell them, well, you haven't seen any of the other cards. Maybe you think they're duplicates, and you can say, well, they are duplicates. And when you turn the deck over, every other card is a blank card. And that's an absolute strong kicker. It just blows them away, which is why this gets my highest recommendation for a predicted card at any number type effect, because it's really hard to beat this, especially when there's no sleight of hand. There's no difficult moves. Everything looks fair. You barely touch the cards yourself. So I'd highly recommend that you check it out if you're not familiar with it. It is really a powerhouse worker effect that you're going to enjoy a lot. And it totally blows away iceberg completely. Now, my second recommendation to you guys for another good predicted card at any number effect is an effect by Anthony Owen that was called Card at Number, is what I think it was called. You can find it in his book called Secrets. I think it was also on his Penguin lecture. That effect is very straightforward. It is another predicted card at any number effect. You take a deck of cards and you tell the spectator to freely think of a card, but don't tell anyone, just keep it in your mind. You take the cards out of the deck, or you take the cards and you hand them to them. You tell them now to just name any number from 1 to 52. So they name any number from 1 to 52, and you tell them to count cards into your hand face up until they get almost to their number. So they're counting cards face up into your hand. They can see that they're all different. Right before they get to their number, you tell them, okay, announce to everybody what the card is that you're thinking of. They announce it. they deal the next card, and the card that's there at their number is not the card that they thought of. So then it looks like you messed up. You explain to them that you actually had put these cards in an order and you had numbered them, and then you shuffled the deck. So you say, let's take out your card. You take out their card, you turn it over, and you can show them that what you wrote on the back of the card, the number, is the same number that they merely thought of a moment ago. And all the other cards obviously have numbers on the backs as well. And so it's like an instant predicted card at any number effect. It's very strong, very easy to perform. And I really like the misdirection that's built into it, because in that moment where you failed, that's the moment really, like when there's this big moment of, oh, he messed it up, and everyone just kind of laughs. That's the moment where the dirty action takes place, which is not even like anything difficult to do. It's very simple and straightforward. And then the kicker of when they see that the number that's written on the back of the card is the number they just merely thought of, it just destroys their mind, blows them away. I would recommend you check out Anthony Owen's book called Secrets, because there's so much good card magic in there. So these two predicted card any number effects are the ones that I would recommend to you guys. I would recommend that you stay away from mindCAAN by Ali Foroutan, because I think it's overpriced, and I don't like it at all. I just think it's a terrible effect. There's so many better options, as I already mentioned to you guys. Anyway, as usual, if you have any questions or concerns, just leave me a comment below. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and this has been another requested magic review.